Okay, now I've got it going. The Spectrum guy was. I have a front entrance and a back entrance to my home. It's a dead end road in the back, but there's some people that live behind me back there. Um,
Right.
and I saw him on the Spectrum guy on the utility pole. I mean, I my heart jumped beats. I ran out there and I said, "Sir," I said, "am I going to have any problems because?" And he said, "No, absolutely not." So that scared me though. I said, "I don't have time to relocate myself for class." So, but anyway, it all worked out.
Oh, I'm using a different computer because I finally had to take my laptop into the Geek Squad Monday. So,
I started my day off with computer problems at work. I had a Zoom session at 10 o'clock, and at about 9:45, I didn't have any no internet, nothing. But they came and got me on time, got on board just in time, so we were able to do what we needed to do. We're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we have 32 people with us so far, and so that's a good group. And I hope more will join us. As we're moving on into the evening. But I want to welcome you to week 6, and um, we're not going to spend a lot of time with our just welcomes or whatever. We're glad to have you in the program. We're we're very pleased for the most part with the majority of the work that's being done, and we're going to comment on that. And we'll just go ahead and move into that, Dr. Revis. If you would like to, just go
okay.
ahead and speak about comments about task 4.
Okay. Well, I was very pleased with task 4 that was turned in on Sunday evening. And this was a labor intensive in writing task, and you guys handled it very well. You're getting the APA style down. I know you're peer reviewing and helping each other with some of those APA issues, and I do appreciate that. It's showing up in your work, and just very, very strong work from task 4, I thought.
Which, and I'm glad you said that about the APA and the peer reviewing. That that's one of the main purposes. First of all, it helps you be more critical of your own work, but then, as others look at work, we told you, Dr. Revis and I told you, and I deliberately don't address everything that I see because I want somebody else to catch it. That's the whole purpose, is for you to catch it and to help each other out, and you learn from that process. And you know, like I said, for the most part, I'm very, very pleased with the peer reviews as well. Task 4, and I'm not just saying this, in my opinion, and I've been doing this a long time, overall, this is the best task 4 that I have had in the almost 9 years that I've been doing this program. So you're to be commended. The thing that impressed me the most, Dr. Revis, when I sent it back, it was if there were, for the most of them, I would say 98% of them, that if I sent it back, it was simply with a comment to where you had just overlooked something, and I said to go back and give it a critical eye. And usually I even copied it and put it in my comments so you would see what I was talking about. But I said, you go back and check just in case I did miss something. But but most of you, I was able to say, a resubmit meant that you only had to provide evidence that you had presented this to your administration. Other than that, there was not anything else. When it came back to me, I just, and some have started doing that, it's a quick click. I look to see that the administration part is there, and I don't have to spend a lot of time just saying, excellent work, move on to task 5 of the APSL. And I've not been able to do that this extensively with a group of students as large as we've got. But so you're to be commended on listening to Dr. Revis and me and Dr. Lamb and the others when we've met on Thursday evenings. You're to be commended for taking all of this into stride and really rising to the occasion and doing excellent work. Now, again, I'm telling you, don't, because we're bragging on you so much, don't you go and backslide on us at all. So we're not going to let you do that. So Dr. Revis, let's move on to the comments about week 5 Zoom video for the APSL.
Well, again, I'll have to say, Dr. Stedman, these were some of the strongest Zoom videos that I have seen. In most cases, the Zoom master had an agenda already laid out, and they followed that agenda. They really had some good discussions about the work, and even got into some issues about APA and how, and I was pleased to hear comments about how much they have appreciated those peer reviews in helping them work through some of their work. So I was very pleased with the quality of work and the professionalism on the Zooms.
Likewise, me too. And I think the leadership was evident in the person that took the role of being the Zoom master in every one of mine. And the thing that impressed me was you stuck to the topic as we asked you to do. The Zoom leader kept everybody on task. Everybody, for the most part, shared equally as we asked you to do. You followed our directions, and we really appreciate you doing that. And I agree with Dr. Revis. I think these were quality. I've not always had quality. I've had quantity. You can give me an hour video and it doesn't mean a whole lot. But these were not only, the quantity was there because you spent time. You didn't just rush through it, but it was quality overall as well. So again, we want to thank you for a job well done. And so enough for the kudos. We're going to have to go on and get to the task of the evening. We're going to look at what week 6 is going to look like, and then week 7, and actually we're going to go ahead and look at week 8 as well because of the timing of things. We're going to do an introduction of your last task for the APSL, task 5, and then after that, I'm going to go back and and Dr. Revis and we're going to tell you how to put task 1 through 5 together. I normally don't do that this week, but so many of you are at the place that you're going to be sitting still, not knowing what to do because you're going to finish task 5. I would think, not minimizing the work, but you know what you're doing, and after we go over it, you're going to complete that pretty quickly, I think, and you're going to be ready to do this. And so we're not going to hold you back. Those that are ready, we're going to let you go ahead and get started on this. So we're going to go over that process tonight. Then Dr. Revis is going to introduce a week 8 activity, and the reason being, you will have completed the APSL, and this case study relates to your work with the APSL. So we're going to go ahead and let you, and the thing is, you don't have to wait until week 8. Your team and you can go ahead and decide when you want to do this after instructions are given tonight, and you can go ahead and move forward with it because you will have completed all the work that we would expect you to have done to be able to successfully work this case study and relate it to the APSL work itself. And then, as we always do, at the end, unless it's just something that you have to do, hold your questions and your to the end, and Dr. Revis and I will work with you. However, if there is something that you need to know, for clarity right then, it's okay to interrupt us and to let us know. As a reminder, what is due this coming Sunday? Task 4 revisions are due to the instructor in the assignment Dropbox. Dr. Revis, I've already started, I've gotten many of mine already. They're cleared. Task 4 peer reviews, 2 of them due to the assignment Dropbox. More than half of my students have already completed that task. And then I'm going to talk about this. APSL Task 5 is due to the instructor. Notice, to the assignment Dropbox. We're going to tell you what to do there because there are no peer reviews. It's just to Dr. Revis and me, but we're going to go over that and tell you exactly what to do. So don't get afraid when you just see straight to the assignment Dropbox. With that in mind, let me minimize this document and then let me pull up. Let me see what I want. This is a week at look, a look at week 6. And again, I'll remind you, because we don't talk about this a whole lot does not mean that it's not important, that you should not be working. And actually, Dr. Revis, I heard some evidences of some of the material that had been read in the discussions. This week I've seen some of the work of some of these authors referenced in their bibliographies. So I know that you know, some of you have proven, as we ask, you have proven to us that you are keeping up with your readings and doing what you're supposed to do. Again, we've just gone over this, what is due next week. I want to look at week 7 so you can get a general idea of how to pace yourself. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit it too hard. And I'm sorry, I can never find this little arrow over here. Week 7, again, you're reading, and Dr. Revis and I will decide exactly how we're going to handle. We will probably talk about action plans next week. We will, because this will actually be a precursor leading into some of the work that you'll be doing for the APTEL in just a few weeks. So we'll decide how we want to handle action plans next week, but we're going to talk about them some. And then if you notice, the only thing in red is that this is work on the final draft of the APSL, which we're going to tell you tonight how to do that, but it will continue through next week. And the assignment that Dr. Revis is going to go over tonight with relative to the case study, that will be a week 8 assignment, and you can be working on that as well. I'm going to pull up let me find it. Here it is. I'm going to pull up I want to pull up the APSL template first. And remember, all of these documents are in your Blackboard under the APSL template and materials. This is task 5. And notice what it's telling you to do. The candidate will reflect. That means you're going to think about something. You're going to reflect on the APSL experience by aligning the course content to your clinical experience. Now, I know your clinical experience has been a struggle, you know, in many ways because of having to do things virtually. But between the work that you've actually had to do with the APSL, being the leader in the development of the APSL, and then the clinical work that you've been able to do working, you know, under your assigned administrator, those are the things that you're going to be reflecting on. And remember, the important thing is, do not reflect on it through the eyes or the lens of a teacher. You reflect on everything through the eyes and the lens of an administrator, of a leader. That was the whole purpose, you know, in you being the leader in this activity. So we don't want to read from you know, from a teacher's view on these things. It must be from your view, what you've learned to this point, you know, as a leader, as an emerging administrator. And the candidate will also reflect on development of competencies and dispositions that are so critical to effective school leadership. This is what you're going to do. Candidates reflect on the actual experience by critically assessing personal development. You're assessing yourself. Lizzie's going to look at it and she's going to say, you know, when it comes to the 12 competencies for the APSL, she's going to look at conflict management, and she's going to self-reflect on conflict. What did I learn about conflict management as it relates to leadership? You will talk about it, the pros and the cons, the ups and the downs. You can actually write about a personal experience in there. Now, it's not a dissertation. These are just short examples of some things just to give you an idea. But, you know, it's going to be, everybody's is going to be different. So we're asking you, when it comes to each of the competencies that you're addressing, you're to look at them as it relates to you personally. So you're critically assessing your personal development, and you can say, it's okay to say to Dr. Revis and me, you know, I still feel that this is an area that I'm weaker in, and I know that I need to strive to work harder to grow in this area. That can be your final statement, you know, or you can say, I feel very confident and competent in this area. However, if you do, support it with the proof with us. Let us know. Again, all of this is narrative work at this point. This is narrative work. If you cite an example, it is an example in narrative form. And what you're doing, you're assessing your personal development by fusing course content with the clinical experience in relation to the 21 North Carolina standards for school executives. Now, South Carolina, you have to get certified by North Carolina, so you're held to the same 21 standards. However, in South Carolina, it may not be called that, but it's the same. It's the same competencies, no matter how they're embedded. Whatever they're embedded in, it's the same stuff. And you'll need to know these and be familiar with these when you take the South Carolina praxis for reciprocation of the certificate that you'll get here in North Carolina. And you're looking at these that were evidenced by the candidate. Candidates must cite sources and clinical experiences that influence self-analysis of each competency addressed throughout the APSL. And below are a few examples of reflections of the APSL process through the lens of the competency standards. And remember, we said that these are only examples that we've given you. And it's not all of them, it's just a few of them. We put them in there so that you could see examples of how they're written. Now, one of the things I want to point out, you will put them in under task 5. You will write them just like you see here. You may do a little narrative introduction to it, and then each one, you're going to have 12 headings. They're going to be delegation. You're going to write delegation in full-phrase print. Then dialogue and inquiry are together. But now I want you to see something that many students, we have to send it back because they forget the APA 7th edition. Systems thinking. Now, look at the first word. The first word is capitalized, but what about the second word? It's a lowercase letter.
Dr. Stedman?
Yes.
Sorry to disturb you.
That's okay.
You just mentioned, so we need 12, but there are 8 required one, and then we can choose The extra 4 ones that we
Yeah,
wanted to.
and that's coming next, Tamara. I'm coming on
Thank
down
you.
to that. That's
Thank
okay.
you.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that everybody understands at this point, when you write them, make sure that you're following APA. There was a time in the 6th edition where systems thinking, S would have been capitalized, the T in thinking would have been capitalized. APA 7th edition says that the T in thinking is not capitalized, only the first word. So the difference being that when you see conflict management, the M in management, the difference being dialogue inquiry, because that is just 2 ways of saying, looking at the same competency. So that is why you see both of those, and you see the slash in between them. So that is why it's written that way. That's important because, again, it will have to go back if you don't see it. Now, remember where I am. I'm on in Blackboard. I went to the APSL the APSL template and material section, and I actually clicked on your template that's in there. That's where I am. So when you get to your template and you scroll down to past evidence 5, I want you to look what's down here. Down at the bottom, we've got everything written out for you. Oh, let me pull it back up. I went too far. Okay. Tamara, this is where we were talking about required MEL 601 competencies. These are the ones these right here. APSL requires evidence of competency in the following 8 areas, with an additional 4 competencies to be selected by the candidate, totaling 12 competencies evidenced in the folio and task stream. Okay, look here. Well, in task stream, but this is for the APSL right here. Look here. You've got communication, you've got change management, you've got delegation, you've got dialogue inquiry, you've got judgment, you've got systems thinking, you've got technology, and you've got visionary. Notice all of those I've highlighted in yellow. These are non-negotiables. These 8 competencies you must do for the APSL. Under task 5, these 8 are required. So we must see all 8 of these. Okay? Now let's come on down. Now we've listed underneath that, we have listed all 21 of the competencies. And the reason it says folio is because these are the same competencies that you use in your competency folio and task stream as well. You just use them with the artifacts there. But these are the same 21 competencies, from communication all the way to visionary. All the way to visionary. Now, the 8 that we mentioned up there are non-negotiable. You must do those. But 8 from 21 equals what? Okay, you do your math. That means that you've got to choose 4 more. 4 more, 8 were used. But of the ones that are left, you choose 4 more of them of your own. So that means that if I've got 30-some people could have, they could choose all kind of different things for their 4. Okay? So you're going to pick 4 more competencies that you're going to reflect on for your APSL work. That's 8 plus 4 is 12. There's 21 competencies. Well, what about the 9 that are left, Dr. Stedman? Guess what? Those are the 9 that you're going to use for the APTEL with the next evidence. The 9 that are left are the 9 that you will automatically use at the end of the APTEL, and that will be your 21. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second to make sure that you understand that and you know where to go. Do you understand what you need to do at this point?
Yes. Thank
Dr.
you.
Stedman, I have a question. So
Sure.
So should the competencies be listed in alphabetical order in the paper?
No, they can be,
Okay, so
well, no, they're listed there, but in the paper, I really don't care. I've never thought about that, Dr. Revis. I mean, you know,
I don't have a preference one way or the other.
I really don't, I don't care. Thanks for asking that, but I wouldn't have thought about it if you hadn't have said it. I probably will look now, but I won't hold that against anybody. I do notice that they are alphabetized here,
right.
as they're listed there. But that is, you know, I'm not going to qualm over that, and Dr. Revis won't either. As long as you've got your 12 that you need. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're
so, Dr.
welcome.
Stebbins, we have one more question in the chat
Sure.
box.
Uh-huh.
So we are writing about clinical experiences at our school as well as the APSL.
Yes, and it can be a combination or either or. And again, we're not looking for opinions here. We're looking for actual experiences that happen, and then you are personally reflect. It's like writing your diary based on these you know, how does it relate to you, you know, personally. But yes, did I answer that question, Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Okay.
And guys, you notice this is a week you can take a little breather because you're not having to pull together your PLC team. You're doing this as a reflection, and this should be hopefully a good reflective time for you to spend and thinking back about what you've learned so far in the course.
And the reason being, Dr. Revis and I are the only ones that will see this. Now, Dr. Revis is going to see those in her class. I'm going to see the ones in my 2 classes. But guess what? I'm going to see Dr. Revis's students when you submit the work that you have to do for these 21 competencies in TaskStream, and she's going to see the 21. So we're the only 2 people that will see these at this point are going to be Dr. Revis and me, and the other person will be whoever your outside evaluator is, you know, once we submit the final your final APSL to TaskStream. Before I move on, any question, you know where to find the 21 competencies, and you know where to find now the 12 that you have to do, or the 8 that's required, and then you know where to pick from the rest of them as you move forward with task 5. Does everybody know that now? Okay. I'll come back to that. I want to, let me make sure. Okay, now, I want to pull up, and you have this in your, here it is, the APSL example. Now, please be reminded that every semester, you don't get an example of an evidence work. We start you out with lots of assistance, but then, as we've said, we cut the apron strings, and you won't get all this. So you make sure you learn and you follow from the example that we're giving you at this time. Now, remember, at the beginning of the semester, and Dr. Revis, Whitley has a question. Whitley, you want to go ahead and ask it before we move on?
Yes, I just had a quick question for the tense we are to write for task 5. The final evidence narrative is speaking like the candidate shared, and then the template is saying I. So which tense should we be using?
Okay. It's about you, so you can say you learned. It's something that has already happened.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. And remember, we said that the examples are not always the best examples. They're just examples. But that's a good question, Whitley. Remember, at the beginning of the semester that we said that on your title page, that the only thing that goes there is your name. So the title page is just like it is in the template. And the only thing that you're going to do there is to put your name where Jane B. Doe is, okay? And then we're going to move on to the next page. Remember, the first task that you did for Dr. Revis and me was your school profile. And that school profile will follow your title page. This is putting your document together. Then you go to your task 1. Now remember, we said that if it was in black, that those are directions and they stay. So when you go back and you put your document together, what you see and all the work that you've done, what you have seen in black stays. So actually, you've already done the work for task 1. Don't take any of that away until I get to the part that I'm going to tell you that you're going to combine. So you're going to put task 1 in there, just like you submitted to Dr. Revis and me, and got approval from it, and put it in the APSO assignment Dropbox. That's the first thing you're going to do after your school profile. Then, but you remember, at the end of each of the the task 1 through 4. Okay, it's not there. At the end of each of task 1 through 4, remember you had to do a reference section each time, and you had to do an appendices each time. Okay? What you're going to do now is you're going to combine the references from task 1, 2, 3, and 4, and task 5 if you would happen to have one for task 5. I don't think you will. You're going to combine all of them into one reference section, APA style, going back and putting them in alphabetical order like you're supposed to, APA style, into one reference document or one reference section. That reference section will go at the end of task 5. It will go at the end. After task 5 comes your combined reference section. Remember, at the end of task 1, 2, 3, and 4, you had an appendices. After your reference section, at the end of task 5, after your reference section, you will have a combined appendices, APA style 7th edition, and that will be the end of your document. Dr. Revis, did I miss anything there?
No, I think you're fine there. Remember, your references, when you put them all together, they have to be in alphabetical order now.
Right. And you will see at the end of this is task 2, task 3, and you notice that we're moving on, that you have the graphs embedded in your work, but you will find that any of your references and any of your appendices, they're not there anymore because they have gone to the end of your document. Now, I'm going to tell you this. It's important. The process that we're teaching you now, that's why we cut the apron strings. You're going to do, the content will be different, but the format and the structure will be the same for the next 5 evidences that you're going to do. You will actually have to, there's a time after this semester that you will have to come up with your own, you're not even going to get a template. When you get to Dr. Lamb next semester, he's not going to give you a template. He's going to say, Dr. Revis and Dr. Stedman taught you that in 601, and you follow the examples, you know, that they've given you. That's why we stress it so much, and that's why we spend a lot of time, you know, camping out there, because we know that there's going to come a time that you're going to be on your own and that you're not going to have these examples for that semester, you
also-
can always go back. Go ahead, Dr. Revis.
And also notice that your figures, you're going to have to renumber your figures throughout, both in your at the top of your figure, but also in your text where you're that figure.
Okay. Right, here we go. Here's your references. And see that they've all been combined alphabetically APA style. And then here is your appendices.
So Dr. Stedman,
Yes.
like for each task, obviously we had an appendice. So like would task 1 at the very end of this combined paper now become like appendix A, and task 2 would technically be appendix B?
No. Dr. Revis, you want to answer that?
No, it's just one appendices at the end.
And then you would just run down the figures. So if I've got a figure embedded in task 1, that would be figure 1, but just say I never had a figure again until the appendice, then it would be 2, 3, 4, 5.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
You actually, if you've got, however you've numbered them in task 1 through 4, you just go back and renumber them or reorganize them at the end all over again.
Okay, and then if they're embedded, you know, everything embedded, say there's 10 embedded within, they would be 1 through 10, but then when you get to the appendice, it would be 11, 12, 13. Or you would start over with 1.
No, they go consecutively,
Okay,
Yeah,
both in text and in your appendices.
right. And I would advise you, and again, it's not hard, so don't please, any of you, don't make it hard, but there is in your APA 7th edition, there's a good section on the appendices, you know, how that should look, and then go back and look at the example given as well. Okay, I really don't think once you get in there that it'll be that hard for you, and you can go back and look at research studies and actually dissertations and things like that, and it's no differently than what you would see at the end of a dissertation. Okay. So Dr. Revis, you think we,
Now, let's talk about after they put it all together,
okay.
then what do they do next?
Okay,
Dr. Stedman?
that's what I was going to make sure that we had covered everything up to this point. Okay, let's go back to Blackboard. Once you put it all together. Okay, now remember, it's important because this could get confusing if you don't listen. Remember, up to this point, you've had a discussion board and you've had the APSL task for review. Okay, it's the same thing. Let's go to the discussion board. Okay, now when you create, or the APSL task for review will do the very same thing. When you do task 5 this week, and remember we said that there would be no peer reviews, but that doesn't mean that you have to just go ahead and automatically put it in the assignment Dropbox and not get feedback from Dr. Revis and me first. You can go to task 5 and notice what it says for instructor review. It doesn't say for peer and instructor review. When you complete task 5 this week, I would suggest that you put it under instructor review, and we're going to tell you, this is probably one of the easiest ones to grade, Dr. Revis, once they put it in there. But what we'll do is we'll tell you, you know, excellent work. If everything's good, go ahead and combine your task 1 through 5 into one document. This is where we'll tell you to go ahead, you know, we'll either tell you that you need to go back and fix something with one of the 12, or we'll tell you, excellent, combine the APSL into one final document. Well, when I combine it into one final document, what do I do with it? You go right back to this same place and you submit it to Dr. Revis and me again. You can submit in this area as many times as you need to. You will submit it back in there, and I'm going to just open it up. When you do that, when you want it for us to review your final document, you will create a thread. And when you get in there, you will just name it, final APSL document for review. And then you will attach that document for our review. And what Dr. Revis and I will do there is, once you do that, we will go back in there, we'll review your task 1 through 5 combined document. And if everything's good to go, that is where we will tell you, submit to the Turnitin process. That's all we're going to say there. If it's good, we're going to say, excellent, submit to the Turnitin process. Once you do that, then you will find the APSL Turnitin check. And you will follow the directions to submit your document for Turnitin. Now, Turnitin will send a message to Dr. Revis and to me, not to you. Once you've done that, you don't do anything else with Turnitin, okay? And you don't mess with Turnitin until we tell you to put it in Turnitin, because you don't get but one chance. If everything is good, when we go into Turnitin, we will actually, Dr. Revis and I will get the notice that it's there. We will actually put it through the Turnitin process. If everything's good, we're going to say, excellent, submit your work to TaskStream for final evaluation. Okay? Now notice, that means that you got to leave here and you've got to go into your TaskStream account where Dr. Lamb, he went through the process and showed you. Go back and review that if you need to. We'll talk about that next week if we have to. Okay? You're not at that place yet. But we'll tell you after it's been approved in the Turnitin process, then we will tell you at that point. If everything's good, we'll say, excellent work, great job, submit to TaskStream for final evaluation. And make sure that when you submit it to TaskStream for final evaluation, that you submit the correct document. We've had students that didn't pay attention and they sent the wrong document to the evaluator, because that doesn't go to Dr. Revis and it doesn't go to me. Once we tell you to submit it to TaskStream, it's completely out of our hands. We've done all we can do at that point. It goes to a third-party evaluator. They will evaluate your work. If it's you want a 4, you want a 4, but you don't want anything less than a 3. If it's less than a 3, then Dr. Revis and I have to decide what has to be done with the work, and you have to do a makeover with it, and it has to be resubmitted another time. Now, normally we don't have that problem, and I don't perceive that problem if you continue doing what you've been doing for us. Okay, Dr. Revis, do you think I've cleared that at this point?
I think so. Just once again, do not submit to Turnitin until we tell you to do so, and do not submit it to TaskStream until we give you the green light there as well. When we look at our reports from Turnitin, and I know we'll talk about this next week, we will get reports, originality reports, and I'm sure many of you are very familiar with Turnitin. And I don't I don't blink an eye if it's 25 to 30%. Because you've got all that text in there that's Gardner Web text in your artifacts. So I don't worry about that. But if it's too high, then we're gonna dig down and work with you about cleaning up maybe it's an improper citation, maybe you forgot to cite something or whatever. But it's a pretty quick process from here on out. But just don't jump the gun and do Turnitin and Tastering before we give you the green light.
I call it don't get trigger finger happy. I don't let that finger. Sometimes your mind would say finger push it. You don't let that finger. Don't let your mind talk that finger into doing anything until we tell you to.
I know we're going to hear a big shout and hooray whenever you submit it to Tastering. Believe me, I understand that.
And I promise you, once we get you through this, and then you go into the AppTel next semester, you won't even have to ask us a lot of questions about all this once you've gone through it the first time. And I mean, we've lived through this, so we know. So Dr. Revis, and I know we'll revisit this next week, but I did want to go ahead and in Blackboard, I want you to see where it says case study materials. I'm going to pull that up, and Dr. Revis is going to talk about the case study process.
You have 2 case studies this semester, and we're going to look at case study 1, the scenario. And as Dr. Stedman said earlier, this aligns really nicely with what you've been doing in the APSL, the components of the case study. And so what you're going to do is you're going to individually pull up the case study, review it, and you're going to prepare. Yeah, that'd be great. You could pull that up. Yeah.
Okay, go to case study directions. Okay.
You're ultimately going to Zoom in your Zoom teams about the case study. But for you to prepare for that Zoom meeting, that collaborative meeting, you are asked to prepare a 1-paragraph response for each question. And there are questions at the end of the case study. Now, when you're preparing the responses, I'm going to tell you like my first doctoral professor told me, you don't know enough to have your own opinion. You have to back up your opinion with some research. Here is where we're going to ask you to back up what you would do differently or how you would answer these questions and why you're answering the way you're answering them, because you're pulling information from your PLC information. You've done research there. You've done research on action planning. You've done a lot of research in this APSL. And a lot of reading in the APSL. And so you're going to have to rely on those resources to support your opinions. Okay? So you're going to Zoom about this, and then during the Zoom session, each member is going to share your written response, and you're going to engage in a scholarly discussion. Again, that word scholarly means you're not just giving your opinion, but you're backing that opinion up with some of your literature and research. Okay? So we should hear you say things like, well, I think the principal should have done this because Ubbins says X, Y, and Z. Or DeFore says a PLC should do A, B, and C. You've got to back up your opinions. That's a scholarly discussion. Okay, so you prep for that, pulling your literature and research. You have the scholarly discussion. Of course, you record it, and we're going to watch all those again. And then you have to write a reflective summary, a 2-part reflective summary.
Number 4.
And that's what you're actually going to upload into Blackboard. You will upload, the first part is just a reflective summary, an overview of the relevant points of the case. Now, please just don't retell the case. We want the relevant points. what stood out to you as being relevant in the case study. And then the second piece is a reflection on your Zoom session. And what are your takeaways from this scholarly discussion? In other words, I might say, you know, Dr. Stedman really brought out a point that I hadn't thought about in saying that principal should have done this or that. I'm going to reflect on what are my takeaways from that scholarly discussion. Now, we'll go over this again. It's not difficult, but you will enjoy this case study. Again, it goes along with what you've been doing in your APSL and the work and the readings that you've been doing, and I think you'll really enjoy doing that. I would suggest going ahead and with your Zoom team and go ahead and set a time to do this early in week 8 or at the end of week 7. You're going to be able to catch your breath here just for a second, a week or so. Particularly some of you have already worked through. Dr. Stedman, I have one that has already worked through everything, and she's ready for me to tell her what to do with combining the
Right.
5 tasks. So
Yeah.
I know you have some too that are there.
And
So
they should be ready after tonight. They should be ready to move on. Yes.
yeah, and so we don't want to hold you back. So if you're ready to go on and have that Zoom meeting and get this case study done, by all means, go ahead and do it. But read your
Dr. Evans, I
directions.
wanted to point out, notice in under the materials, you've got your directions that we just showed you. This is case study number 1, the scenario 1. Again, as Dr. Revis said, there's the case study, and then at the end of the case study are the questions that all of you must answer to take into the Zoom session that you will have as a group. Okay, that's your case study. Then once your work is done, where does it go? Case study scenario 1, written reflection, and Zoom link. This is where you will submit all of your work. Okay?
And again, there's not a template or anything that goes with your reflection that you're going to upload. But remember, you've got 2 pieces. First part is you're restating the main points from the case study. You know, don't just retell the case study, the main points. And secondly, you're reflecting on your Zoom session.
Okay. Okay, I know this has been a lot, but we're at that point. So, other questions at this point? You're smart. I know you know, you can have questions, but I think you already know what to do. You're a smart group.
I'm sorry again, Dr. Stedman.
That's okay, Tamara. You don't have to apologize.
Sorry. Would this be written in the first person APA style guideline for the case study?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, because it's your opinion. You know, you're talking about, you know, with this, you're reflecting. It's about you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for that question. Okay, other questions? And again, Dr. Revis, I want to end by saying just how very, very proud I am of overall the 3 groups. Overall, you really are at a great place. And I don't know if you were with us when we were talking at the very beginning of the class, but we're actually, because of how hard you have worked and just how you've just done everything, you've paced yourself like we've asked you to, we're going to be able to, for those that are ready, usually we have to kind of slow things down a little bit, but we're going to be able to move on after next week, and we're going to be able to go ahead and introduce the APTEL so that you can go ahead and get started. But the good thing about it is, once we introduce it, I'm not going to change the schedule when things are due. That gives you about 2 to 3 weeks to actually to dig in and to get ahead of things after we introduce the app tool. So there'll be a lot of good planning time in there, and you won't have to rush. So they, because of their hard work, they have actually secured themselves some good time, Dr. Revis.
That's right. And for those few of you who are not up to speed on all of your tasks, guys, you've got to complete the APSL before you start week 8. We've got to have it completed. So I know that some of you have had some conflicts with presenting to your principal, and we get all that. It's crazy right now. But guys, we've got to get you finished up with the APSL before we start the APTL. You can't start the APTL until that's completed.
And what I'm going to do next week, I'm going to ask Dr. Lamb if he will join us next week, Dr. Revis, for a few minutes. I want the 12 competencies that we have introduced for task 5. I want to show you how to work smart and to go ahead and get those 12 competencies completed for your folio. You know, those same 12 competencies have got to be addressed before the semester's over with anyway. So, you know, work smart, think smart, and don't waste your time and kill 2 birds with 1 stone by going ahead. And we're going to talk about, we'll ask Dr. Lamb if he will join us next week, and if he will spend a few minutes just revisiting that with you, so you'll know exactly how you can go ahead and take care of that and knock it out instead of rushing at the end of the semester trying to get that part done. Okay? Because you'll have to address the 9 at the end of the semester that you have not addressed now. But if you've got 12 ahead of you, 12 done versus having to do 21 at one time will save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. Okay. Okay, anything else? We are right on target. Again, if my wife could tell you, she'd tell you I brag on y'all all the time. I do. Don't we, Dr. Revis?
Exactly. And guys, we told you it would get easier, and now you've got a little breather here, but I know that you are very focused and very task oriented, and that's why we're going to push ahead, so you're not sitting here spinning your wheels. But you know, we appreciate the hard work and the dedication, and give yourself some time this week in your reflections to pat yourself on the back for the hard work that you've done these past 6 weeks. You have really, really put out some outstanding work during a time when most of you are not even on campus. You are doing remote instruction, and you're remoting with your PLC and remoting with your principal. And we're just very proud of your time management and the quality of work you've been able to produce. So pat yourself on the back while you're doing these reflections.
Now, I'm going to go a little bit further, Dr. Revis. Tell your significant other that Dr. Revis and I said that you deserve a reward somewhere to buy you something.
There you go. There you go. All
Anyway,
right.
well, good night, and we will look forward to seeing you again on next Tuesday. Okay. Good night, everybody.
No class Thursday.
No, not this Thursday. No.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everybody.